Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
A lot through the years.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But just would go there. It was like a destination point between the Vanguard, Sweet Basil, and then the 7th Avenue South.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Brecker Brothers place.
Yeah. I've spoken to Randy about that like a couple of months ago. I did, with Randy, and you know, he had so many stories about.
Oh yeah, man, that was an amazing hang, and a lot of great music. And you could go in the first floor at the bar without paying a cover charge, and still hear the music from upstairs. But the hang was amazing until 4 a.m. Yeah.
Everyone was there, right? Yeah.
Well, it was a destination especially after, you know, when other clubs stopped at 2 or whatever.
That's quite
the last couple hours. 2 to 4 would be packed with all kind of folks. You know.
Oh man, yeah. I wish it was a fly like back then. It's like those love sessions you guys did a lot, probably. You know, I've talked to Billy Drews also, and you know.
Oh yeah.
Billy told me about what you guys did in Boston, and Liebman told me about, you know, the New York scene in the 70s. And I was like, man, I wish I could travel back with an iPhone, just like be there, like record all that stuff. I mean,
you know, I think each generation through the years, you'd want to do that in all the different periods, you know?
Yeah.
But luckily, a lot of music was documented, so we could really revisit and feel the vibrations. That's what that's it.
That's so important. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, Joe, thanks so much for taking the time. You know,
beautiful.
I've been listening to you for such a long time, and I've seen you live. Like, I think the last time I saw you live was with that Scofield, which was a couple of years ago. But
that's a few years ago. But that was a special collaboration with Dave Holland and Al Foster with John and I.
Burning group.
That was really happening.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask you about the last one, Garden of Expression, because, you know, like Trio Tapestry, when it came out, I mean, I have a radio show. I presented it on the radio show also. And like, it was something different from you. I don't know. I wanted to ask you, how come, maybe because of working with Manfred, or also the chemistry of the trio and the entire where you are now musically, but how did you go into that direction, actually?
You know, I've lived a life in the art of improvising and trying to develop who I am as a player, not to play who someone else is. And that this way of improvising goes back to my earliest times. And definitely from 1981 with Bill Frisell, starting to play with Paul Motian. We played for 30 years together. But the 10, 15 years before that, we were, you know, I was trying to develop to a point to be able to play with Paul.
Yeah.
And to play in music that was free of stylistic boundaries.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
But yet also playing the saxophone, growing up in the saxophone world and dealing with Wardell Gray and Dexter Gordon and Sonny Stitt and Gene Ammons and my dad who played in that fashion, you know, growing up playing the tenor saxophone, trying to develop in the repertoire and the history of the music, you know, being inspired by it anyway, you know, and trying to get a grasp on how to learn how to improvise, how to play, not just what to play. Like I never was a transcriber, but I'm a listener, and I've learned how to channel what I hear and feel in the music. So if I play in a real straight ahead setting, I'm channeling music that I've, encountered and absorbed, to be able to try to maneuver myself within the harmonic sequences and the study of rhythm to create some melodic invention of my own.
Yep, definitely.
And that all is coming out every time you play. And I think this most recent explorations with the trio with Marilyn, Crispell, and Carmen, Castaldi, the compositions and the way of playing, and the way of playing, listening, and creating music from within the music. That's what's happening. Not how much you can get around your horn and repeat things you practice, to try to play and improvise. So, my focus through the years, as far as a recording artist, has been to make a recording that means something to me.
Yeah.
To mean that has a purpose. So when I played with Hank Jones and Paul Motian and George Mraz, that quartet, there was a reason for that. And the music that came out of it was from that idea.
Yeah.
Same thing playing with Scofield, with John and I collaborate. There's an energy, there's an idea that we're trying to execute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
through my catalog of recorded material, especially on Blue Note Records, over 25 records, each recording was an idea.
Yeah.
Purpose. And that's what jazz is about. If you don't have an idea of who you are and how you play and how you want to play, then you're just going to float through, and make the same record every time you make a record.
True.
Which there's a lot of cats who do that. Sure. And there's some great records and very virtuosic playing.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But to me, that's not what it's about. I want to, each recording is a document of the moment of now. And my two recent releases, Trio Tapestry and Garden of Expression, with that ensemble, that trio, there's a sound and an idea that we're searching for in our execution of the music,
Yeah.
And during this whole pandemic time and all this period, this last year and a half, 2 years really.
Yeah.
I've been composing a lot and trying to put some ideas together for emerging from this period with something that defines this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some recent things have been developing too, playing with Bill Frisell and Tyshawn Sorey.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you saw that Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be recording in early July now. Coming.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Documenting some of that music.
For ECM again, or?
Well, we're working that out. Right
now. Okay.
So I can't really say what's going on. But Tyshawn, once we play, I did an SF Jazz residency in 2019, where I had a trio night, and I played with my trio Tapestry and a trio with Bill and Tyshawn. And I wrote music for that set with them. And then we played as a quintet.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, man.
It was really magical and beautiful. It was on the SF Jazz. It was on a rebroadcast that they did this last year from Fridays at 5. But anyway, from that moment, then Tyshawn booked a week at the Vanguard, and that got canceled, but we did that live stream.
Yeah. And
then we booked the studio to document some of the music, and that is a really beautiful set.
Yeah.
Because Tyshawn, it's not like the Paul Motian trio.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah.
Well, Tyshawn is a different player, but he's very influenced by Paul, and
sure.
was a total disciple of the trio. through the years, and it's a beautiful communication between the three of us.
Yeah.
Music's taken a lot of different shapes in the rhythm and the flow of the structures of the pieces, you know. So that's something that's coming up.
That's beautiful.
I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I love Tyshawn. I did, like, when he was really young, like in 2003, I did a record and a tour, a European tour with him. And man, already then he was burning, you know, Tyshawn.
He's a real natural. He's a real natural, man.
Listening all the time and such a player.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
So, you know, the world of music is full of all kind of possibilities. And as an improvising musician, it's all one.
Yeah, true. Nicely put. Yeah.
For me, you know.
Definitely.
And I feel so fortunate to have come to New York in the mid-'70s and have had a chance to explore music with some of the masters in the music. Yeah. And this multi-generational, multicultural world we live in just fuels all your ideas, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All the time.
Definitely. But I wanted to ask you, Joe, like regarding the compositions for the last one. How do you usually? I mean, it's when I listen to you, these songs, it's all about the melody and the importance of melody. I mean, you know, when you listen to all the greats, the Ornette or whatever, it's about the melody. And now even more, like, you know, the Chapel Song and Night Creature and all these beautiful floating vibe. How did you approach writing these compositions? Like, how did they come?
Well, you know, they all developed from the first recording, right? Trio Tapestry, the compositions for that, the period leading to that session, the way I was putting pieces together, I was writing ideas, and some fall into a song form with a sequence, harmonic sequence, and melodic momentum. And the rhythm was freer, like no bar lines.
Yeah.
And really like let the momentum happen from the harmonic flow and the melodic flow, right? So that idea started to form more. And that led into all the compositions for Garden of Expression, to try to write some songs that had a harmonic flow, but yet were free rhythmically inside them. And also for my melody to be able to take shape as I feel it, right? Instead of writing stuff and playing it the way it looks, trying to really realize the flow and how it could feel.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of that. That is a big part of the way I've been composing recently. Also for the group with Dave Douglas.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. It's
the Sound Prints, that recording.
I love it, man.
That just came out. Also was during the same period of composing for both records.
Ah, really? Because it's like Sky Miles and those tunes, like Midnight March, they sound really different in a way. It's like kind of more rubato-ish, but the vibe.
Yeah, well, it's a different band and a different purpose, but the Garden of Expression was recording in November of 2019, and Other Worlds was recorded in January.
Only like that.
2020, like 2 months apart, you know. But most of the tunes for Other Worlds came together the 2-3 months prior to this session, right? Okay. We had a week at the Vanguard, and Dave and I decided that we're each going to share the space as far as composing for the date, the idea, and we each brought in 5 or 6 pieces each, and played them for the first time at the Vanguard, and developed them, and then went in the studio, you know. So that had a real quick kind of organic flow. You know?
Yeah.
Or Trio Tapestry has been happening over this last couple of years, you know. But a lot of the tunes on Garden of Expression, I wrote in the spring and summer of 19, while I was on tour a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I was on tour with the trio. Plus, I had an opportunity to tour with Diana Krall.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
As a guest with her trio, right?
Oh,
With Kareem Riggins on drums and Bob Hurst on bass, and also John Clayton on bass too. And we did, man, I don't know how many gigs. We played 6 weeks in the summer and 3 weeks in the fall, in September. And during that tour, man, it was so fun to play with her within her flowing, swinging. It was a swinging affair all the way.
Yeah.
There were no lead sheets or charts. I mean, I had lead sheets on the tunes, you know, but I was free to interpret and contribute as I felt it, you know. So I never had any saxophone parts. There were no parts. So anyway, during that tour, I was having a lot of ideas and going back to the hotel and writing ideas out. And a lot of these tunes came together during the tour.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Like my tune, West of the Moon.
Yeah.
Okay, that has a whole shape and flow inspired by, there was a tune of Paul's called Mode 6 that was on maybe Live in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
We only played it a few times, but it was this beautiful composition of Paul's.
Yeah, he was such a master.
It had a long form, like not many repeats within it, just like from bar one to the end, and you know, kind of a long piece, you know. So that idea was part of how that came together, but also we were playing East of the Sun every night.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and it was always like happening, right? We even played it on some sound checks just to play on it, you know, the way it was feeling, you know. Anyway, I went back to the hotel one night. I remember I wrote down the title, West of the Moon. And then it sat, you know, that title just stayed with me for some weeks. And then all of a sudden that tune just came out, man.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's nothing to do with East of the Sun. It's almost like an answer to East of the Sun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so, you know, a lot of my compositions came together in that kind of way. And then at the date, we recorded in Lugano.
Yeah. In that hall, yeah, the beautiful.
That beautiful recital hall that we all play concerts in. So the night before, we played a concert.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for like full house. And we played these tunes. But now in performance, they each took a different shape.
Sure.
In the rhythm and in the flow of playing one tune after another in a 75, 90-minute set, you know. So we had a really hip gig. And then the next morning we came in and reset
into an empty hall.
Yeah, and we didn't address the room. We addressed each other on stage. And then we played each piece one at a time.
Oh, wow.
And the mood, we were able to sustain a mood between each tune that was really magical, man. And most of the session was all that one day. The next morning we came in and did a couple more pieces that ended up being some improvisations, you know. But we were able to sustain a mood that was real special, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
After playing the night before with this other kind of attitude and energy, you know.
Yeah.
Because usually you go into a studio to do a record, you get in the studio, you get comfortable, and you make takes.
You like studio work? Like studio records compared to like?
Well, when you treat them like a performance,
then yeah,
they're the same. You know, a lot of my dates have been performances, but in the studio.
Yeah.
That record, From the Soul, for example, if you know that record.
Yeah, sure.
Michelle Petrucciani, Dave Holland, Ed Blackwell. Okay.
Man, I wanted to ask you about playing with Ed. Yeah, I mean,
you know, I mean, it was amazing. That was like all in real time.
Wow.
The only takes I have 2 takes on the 2 duets I played with just Michelle. just to play the tunes twice.
Yeah.
All the other tunes on there was one take, and that was it.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
it was like a performance. It was a performance. You know, so sessions like that taught me a lot about getting relaxed and comfortable in the studio, and not relying on perfect headphone sounds and all that stuff. Try to play as acoustic as you can, and get used to it, and then get into the music. You know,
that's so important.
Yeah. So the session, so Garden of Expression had that kind of flow from playing the night before. You know, usually, like I was saying, in the studio setting, you don't play the night before in a performance in the same room. You might play a gig somewhere, but then you go in the studio and it's another environment. Or in this case, it might have been the first time I ever did something like that too, where we really played a performance of the music, and then in the same space do the session the next day.
That's rare.
Yeah, it was, man. And it was, I think some real magical feelings came through, you know, that these treasured moments. There was a couple moments where we just vibrated on one tonality and created a whole piece of music, you know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful how you and Marilyn also connect harmonically and melodically, because, you know, you don't have a bass, and she's not trying to substitute the bass. It's just like, okay, let's leave it. You know, I'll play 3 notes, like an interval, and it's like, man.
She's one of the most poetic, beautiful musicians.
Yeah. But when did you guys play first with Marilyn?
Well, I had played with her prior to this, like a few different times. You know, she actually she played the Vanguard with me one time with us 5.
Oh wow, really?
And Esperanza was still like, I don't know, 2009 or
really? Oh wow.
Somewhere there. Yeah. James Weidman couldn't make the gig, and I got Marilyn to play with us, which was really great. It was totally different.
Yeah.
It was different, but yet it was in that music, you know. But prior to that, we met really in the mid 80s when she was with Anthony Braxton. And I did my first record as a leader for Soul Note, Black Saint.
Yeah, with Mel Lewis and Kenny, and I love that one. I love that one. Yeah.
So that was live at the Jazz Coalition Center in New York. So I was recording with Paul for Giovanni Bonandrini. We did some dates with the quintet with Jim Pepper, and some trio stuff also with Bill. So I had a little relationship with Bonandrini, who wanted to record me as a leader. So I happened to go when he was in New York recording some folks, and I went to the session to speak with him about my date, and it happened to be an Anthony Braxton record date.
Wow, okay.
That's really when I met Marilyn, and it was like a fast moment. I really remember it. She was in the middle of trying to deal with Braxton, so she, you know, that was an amazing with Jerry Hemingway and John Lindbergh.
Oh yeah,
with Braxton.
Yeah.
So that's when we first met, but we didn't play together for a minute, you know. And then she started doing stuff with Paul, Gary Peacock, and some folks, Mark Elias, and I sat in with them at the Vanguard one time.
Oh wow.
I'm not sure what year that was. It could have been 2006 or 5 or somewhere in there, you know. And then we played a few gigs together as a quartet.
Oh, beautiful.
At Miller Theater, there was a concert, and we played some of Paul's tunes, Mark's, Marilyn's, and mine. You know, that was the first real gig. And then she played with me on a handful of occasions. And then when I was putting this idea together for Trio Tapestry, she was first on the list, you know, and I went to her pad and we played duets.
Beautiful.
And for the first record, we worked out everything as a duo, and then we just made takes with Carmen, you know, and let him flow in the music, you know. And the same thing for Garden of Expression. We got together as a duo and put together some things on each tune, you know.
Yeah.
Now, Carmen and I grew up together. He's from Cleveland, and we were teenagers together and actually went to Berklee College of Music.
Oh, he did as well. Oh, wow. I didn't know.
1970, yeah, 71. Him and I and Ron Smith, who's another very close colleague and friend, a vibes player, three of us went to Berklee together. And so we've had a long relationship of playing all kinds of music together, you know.
Sure.
And my dad loved Carmen's playing too, man. My dad always told me Carmen was his favorite drummer of all my friends. the way he played brushes.
Yeah.
My dad loved the way he played brushes, man.
Space, yeah.
And the feeling that he could draw out of the snare drum. You know, I mean, I always tell Carmen that, you know, we speak about that a lot. But it, you know, like at that time at Berklee, that's when we all met Joey Barron and Kenny Werner and John Scofield and Bill Frisell and
yeah, what a generation, man. That's
George Garzone. You know, I mean, the crowd up in Boston in the early 70s was really fantastic. And I moved to New York along with all those cats. And you mentioned Billy Drews and Steve Slagle and folks that we were playing together every day, every night. You know, we had kind of a loft scene in Boston. If you spoke with Billy Drews,
Billy told me you were like in an industrial area or something like that.
Yeah, they had an apartment. Billy and Steve Slagle and Keith O'Quinn, a great trombone player.
Yeah, sure.
You know, they had an apartment on top of an office building. So from 5 at night till 8. Cool. 5 at night till 8 in the morning, we could play. So there was every night we played, you know, into the wee hours in the morning, you know. And then we all moved to New York in the mid 70s, and both Billy and I had lofts and Kenny Werner, and we had spaces where we could play.
Yeah, that's so cool.
City. And my pad was on 23rd Street and 7th Avenue in Chelsea. Billy's pad was on 26th Street. Which he had first, and Kenny had my pad. I mean, it was like, and then the loft that Weidman and Mike Brecker, Chick and Dave Holland, all those cats, they had a space on 18th Street or 19th Street between 6th and 7th, but that was earlier. That was earlier 70s. But when I had my loft, that building still had cats living there, you know, and playing. I would go to that building and play sessions.
Man,
you know, there was a lot happening in that mid 70s into the 80s in Manhattan. You know, Bill Evans, the saxophone player, he had a loft up on 7th Avenue, maybe 28th Street or something. We used to play there a lot too, at Bill's pad.
That's incredible.
And,
how was the atmosphere among you saxophone players? Because you know, you mentioned now like 10. You know, there's Bob Mintzer still and many others. And like,
Bob Berg, Steve Grossman, Dave Weidman, Bob Berg, and Bob Mintzer, and Bob.
How was this camaraderie between you guys? Like, did you like push each other?
We were all getting in each other's face, but also sharing the space. And for me, I was always like trying to play as a contrast to whoever I was playing with.
Yeah.
You know? But standing toe to toe with some strong personalities and players, man, that's what it's all about in this music, you know?
True.
Because you're challenging each other all the time. And then that goes to how you play with drummers. The drummer, you're challenging each other every step of the way. You play with someone like Billy Hart.
Yeah. For instance,
he's challenging you. He says, all right, yeah, you want to play with me? Okay, come on, let's play.
Yeah.
You know, and as a young cat, you know, you get in the heat of that music, that sends you to the woodshed for the next time. So you can rise to the occasion. You know, and playing with Mike Brecker and Dave Weidman in our band, the Saxophone Summit.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
We started playing in 1999 together in that formation. Man, that was amazing because it was a sextet where we played as a sextet, but yet then there were 3 quartets.
Yeah.
Also, when Mike played with the rhythm section, it was his quartet, man. Liebs also, me also. So that element of having a sextet like that with such strong personality, to rise to that occasion and try to say something in your moment and make it your moment, not try to play like someone else's moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need a great rhythm section also for that. Musicians that take shape with who they're playing with.
Yeah.
Which with Billy Hart and Cecil McBee or Rufus Reed, Phil Markowitz, we had rhythm sections that,
Phil is amazing, yeah.
That really fueled ideas for all of us, and that was amazing, man. And then that group carried on through the years, with Ravi Coltrane joining after Mike's untimely passing, But before Ravi joined, Chris Potter played with us, Josh Redman.
Yeah, everyone, yeah.
We did some other gigs. We played Newport with Josh. We also played it as a quintet, just Liebs and I with the rhythm section too.
Beautiful.
Chris and Josh both played with us, and then Ravi joined the band. And then Greg Osby in more recent times has toured with us,
Yeah.
And that was real different because that was
it's a different
having alto, and then we decided, like Liebs decided only to play soprano.
Yeah, sure.
So it was Greg on alto, Dave on soprano, and I played just tenor.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So that gave the group like some other kind of colors and things. And we put out one recording on Enja with the sextet with Osby, Street Talk. That came out that came out, I think, in 2019, maybe.
Yeah, it's incredible. You mentioned Mike. I just wanted to catch you here. I did this talk with Bob Mincer, and he told me that they did a session once with Mike, and they had like a really heavy chart, and like did the heaviest changes ever, and Mike just came there and played his thing. It was incredible. And then Bob said he like looked at him, and Mike didn't even look at the changes. He was just playing, and Bob was like, "Fuck, man, I have to play now solo after him." And he was like really sweating. But what I wanted to ask you, like, how was your experience playing with Mike, and like when you guys came up in the 70s, like with each one of you with individual voices, basically. So,
playing toe to toe with Mike was incredible, man, because he had a sixth sense about playing, and he had a Mike worked really hard to play the way he played. He practiced and played all day, all the time.
Yeah.
So he knew his horn inside out and played it the way he felt, And he played a lot by ear too, man. He was listening and reacting, and he had a total natural flow as far as like structure and form.
Yeah.
He had a beautiful way of constructing a solo, whether he was going to play a 10-minute solo or a half a minute solo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why he got called for so many dates, because he could come in and play on a 8-bar moment and play some poetic, beautiful music.
Yeah.
Or he could stretch out and play for 10 minutes, man. And, he had a deep, beautiful vocabulary of his own that he developed, and everybody tried to copy, and they come up real short.
Yeah, true.
True. Because you can't be, and Mike worked out a lot of ideas. He wasn't a total free flowing improviser, but he was a very free flowing player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if the mood changed under him, it might throw him off. You know, he liked to play with this serious drive.
Yeah.
He would lead the momentum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
And it was a joyous experience to hear him and to play with him. But in the sextet with Lieb, we had the opportunity to shape things to happen within the same piece of music. So if Mike would play at this real power level, I could come in and change the mood and bring it into some other spaces. You know, the same with Lieb's, you know. So that was really fantastic and joyous, you know. Now Mike also, you know, he was at that Temple University concert with John Coltrane. You know that record?
No.
Offering. 1966 was one of the last recordings. There was a few others after that, but it was with the Pharaoh, Alice, Jimmy Garrison, and Rashid.
Yeah.
And then some percussionists sat in and played the Temple University. You'd have to go and check.
I have to check out this one. I don't know this one.
Oh yeah, very serious, like amazing, powerful music. And Mike was there at that gig.
Oh wow, man.
That changed his life, man. He talks about it.
Yeah.
It was actually in the liner notes of this release. There's some quotes from Mike, actually. Ravi put it all together. You know, this Temple University concert only maybe came out 10 years ago, or forget when it really was released, you know.
Yeah.
From WRTI radio in Philadelphia, Temple University.
Oh man.
It's called The Offering. Yeah, look for that.
Yeah, I'm looking for. I'm already now excited. So.
When you hear it, you know, I mean, like we've heard Meditations, the releases that came out, Om.
Oh yeah, sure.
That period, it's right then.
Yeah, he was.
So there was some real cosmic, different kind of flowing music that was happening, and Mike was there at that gig, man, and he was really young, that man, 1966. Okay. I think that music and that loft, the music that happened in the lofts with Lieb's and everybody in the early 70s was a total reaction to that period. That period of Coltrane.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, I grew up knowing those records too, because my dad loved Coltrane and had played at a jam session with him in 1950 or 50.
Oh, really, man? Oh, wow.
Coltrane was in Cleveland on alto playing in a blues band. And there were some jam sessions all the time. And my dad always talked about that. But my dad, he heard Bird. He heard Lester Young. He played a jam session with Gene Ammons and folks. You know, he was in the community in Cleveland, and during that period in the late 40s, after coming home from the service and all, which he was in the Army band, you know, the late 40s into the 50s, there was a lot going on. All those cities, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Art Tatum was from Toledo. Cleveland had was a real center for the music in between Pittsburgh and Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I grew up with my dad's records and all these crazy stories about him hearing Thelonious and
that's incredible.
Miles and Bird and Coltrane Quartet. You know, when I played with McCoy Tyner, McCoy talked about Cleveland all the time, man.
Really?
Well, because he played there a lot through the year, you know, and of course he was from Philly, so the conversation would always start in Philly, but then it would move to Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Detroit.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah, McCoy Tyner, man, he was so amazing to play with and to be around. And I also started playing with him around 1999.
Oh wow!
Until his passing, also, which was 2020, I think, right?
Yeah,
but
I think
McCoy, to play with him and to be around him was such a beautiful spiritual experience, you know. And I know Mike played a lot with McCoy too, you know.
I saw Mike with McCoy, that quartet, like 1996, man, in Ljubljana. That was
Exactly.
I have goosebumps now. It's just
So I kind of started playing with McCoy the next years, the couple years right after that.
Oh, wow.
We were in Malta together once.
Really?
Around that time, 96. I was playing with Jim Hall.
Yeah.
And George Mraz and Louis Nash.
I love that record. Man,
Right.
that's such a record, man. Grand Slam. Yeah.
That particular group. And Jim was from Cleveland too, he met my grandfather, who I never met. You know, Jim Hall. He went to high school with my Uncle Carl, played trumpet.
Oh,
anyway, we shared the bill with McCoy when Mike was playing with McCoy on Malta. And that was beautiful, man. And then shortly after that, it was with the recording that Mike did with McCoy and got the Grammy for his solo on Impressions, which was pretty intense and incredible. Yeah. So, when you're around each other and you're around folks that are inspired, they're inspiring.
Yeah.
And all of our music really comes from being on the scene and listening and being a part of the community.
Yeah.
I believe that, man. And you go back in time, you listen to Charlie Parker or whoever you want to listen to. It was about the community that they were in, man.
Yeah.
And everybody's fueling each other's ideas, whether it's Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and Lester Young playing together and playing as a contrast to each other.
That's so beautiful. Yeah.
That study, man, for me, I feel so fortunate with my dad that he hit me to all those things, man. And that made me listen to records different.
Yeah.
It made me really listen to the people I was listening to.
Yeah.
Not just what they were playing, but yeah.
Yeah, you seem to have that also connection with the generation before you. You played with Alvin and Jim, you mentioned. And I wanted to ask you, since I'm a guitarist, like, how was it like for you playing with Jim, since, The Bridge for me, like the best guitar comping in the world record ever. Like, how was it like for you, that experience? When did you guys start playing actually with Jim? When did you
excuse me, I'm getting
Oh, yeah, sure.
strange. Okay, sorry about that.
I know.
Well, just growing up with my dad's records and Jim Hall was, like I mentioned, he was part of my dad's life when they were teenagers or whatever,
Yeah.
So I grew up with like the Jimmy Jufree records with Jim.
Oh man, yeah.
And then with the Bill Evans with Jim. Like I went and searched out stuff myself too, But my dad had that one record, Tangents in Jazz, I think, with Bob Brookmeyer and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And, which was amazing. So that was a trio with no bass, no drums, like And then of course, Sonny Rollins, The Bridge, Chico Hamilton, some of the early
sure.
stuff. So I didn't meet Jim until I think he came to hear the trio at the Vanguard.
Oh, wow.
Paul and Bill. Because he was friendly. Of course, he knew Paul from the beginning, in the 50s, playing with Bill Evans and all.
Yeah.
Jim lived in California also for a while, but when he came to hear the trio, it might have been when I first really met him, because he loved Bill.
Yeah, sure.
And,
Bill was like a student, kind of.
Yeah, they had a thing, and we just connected, And I think that recording live at the Regatta Bar, that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly. I don't remember the exact date.
I think it was late 90s. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it came out 2000. I think.
And we were playing as that quartet Grand Slam with George Mraz and Louis Nash, and then we toured Europe. We did a bunch of stuff together.
Oh wow!
And I played on some of Jim's recordings for Telarc also, with strings and different things. I was a guest on a handful of his dates, and he was just such an amazing, intimate beautiful musician, man, and improviser. And
Yeah.
as we would play, he would turn down, and the music would get more intimate within,
Yeah.
and then rise up again too. But he had this beautiful way of playing that made you pay attention more.
Yeah.
Now, I was also like in that world playing with Paul and Bill, and in some of the groups I was in, I was ready to deal with somebody like Jim Hall, man. And that led me to playing with Hank Jones, you know.
Yeah. Another. Yeah.
Get intimate like that, where sometimes in the, you know, you might get into your third or fourth chorus of something, and it starts to plateau in a softer place, you know, or a more intimate place, you know. And then I found that same thing happening with McCoy, man.
Yeah.
My first gigs with McCoy were with Bobby Hutcherson, Sharnette Moffett, and Billy Higgins.
Oh, with Billy, man. Wow.
Yeah, we played 2 different times out at Yoshi's in Oakland.
Oh, wow.
And man, the music with that quintet was just, that was a serious school, you know, to be in the middle of Bobby Hutcherson and McCoy also, but then to be within that flow with Billy Higgins, because the music, like, you know, we play 20-minute tunes.
Sure.
And there would be all these different plateaus in that flow. Like it didn't only start here and go up and stay there.
Yeah.
It might start up there and then come down into a place, and then down into another place, and then up into a place. You know, the intensity in the dynamics.
Yeah.
Different plateaus that were happening were incredible, man, to be within, you know.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you listen to some of the Coltrane recordings where they're really stretching out.
Yeah.
They're hitting all these plateaus all the time.
Yeah.
It's not only one dynamic, like blowing through your horn, you know.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot, you know.
Many times, yeah.
In most groups, you know. The groups that really capture you are the dynamics of how they're playing together, like the Miles groups.
Yeah.
Every Miles group. So all these different plateaus and things that are happening in the dynamic of who's playing and what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
And
playing
with Jim was really a lesson in that, because he would really come down to a double piano sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? And that affects the way I'm going to play the theme, you know. There was one moment with Hank. We played a week at Birdland with Mraz and Motion. Okay.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
I remember this was a deep moment, man, because it was the first night, first tune. We played this tune called Lady Luck, which was one of Thad's tunes in Frank West. You know, bop bop boo doo doo doo. Okay, yeah. So Hank's gonna play an 8-bar intro. Okay, he plays so soft, man, and so he plays a swinging, incredible 8 bars, but it's like really pianissimo, right? Club is real crowded. Everybody's at some whisper. Paul and I come in, and George, and Paul's playing with sticks. We come in softer than him.
Oh man, that's so beautiful.
Like, and Hank looked up, smiled. He was so like, he was surprised and completely so happy. He was like, "Oh yeah." Okay.
That's so cool, man.
Most drummers couldn't play like that, man. Paul played like softer than Hank, but he was on the cymbal with the stick.
Yeah,
and it's not that fast a tempo. It was like really medium, slow tempo.
Man,
and, I came in at a whisper, man, with that theme, and it just happened organically like that, you know. But those are the moments, man, that you remember.
Yeah,
you know. And it was a big lesson, man, and it's definitely translating on my Garden of Expression for sure.
Yeah,
in the tone of it, and the dynamic of how we're trying to play together, you know.
Yeah, you can hear that. You can hear that. Yeah.
Getting back to the guitar. So you're a guitar player.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel so fortunate, man, to really during that period in the 80s and 90s, play so much with Scofield, John Abercrombie, Jim Hall, and Bill Frisell, you know, among others also. But those four cats, man, to me, like, and Jim was like the inspiration for everyone. But playing with John Abercrombie led me to a lot of things, man.
Oh man, John for me, like one of the, you know, I saw him live so many times, and Landmarks. I transcribed every John solo on Landmarks.
Oh, beautiful,
really.
Man. You played amazing on that, man.
Yeah, such a player, and I mean that record anyway. Like it's a masterpiece.
I loved him so much, man, and heard him a lot. And then the first time we played, I guess it was in the late 80s or sometime in the 80s, I subbed for Mike at they had a week. Mike was playing with Mark Johnson and John and Peter Erskine.
Yeah.
And he couldn't make a week at the Fat Tuesdays. And John called me, and I had never really played with him before that. You know, Mike might have told him to call me or whatever. I'm not sure. But he probably had been hearing me with Paul and Bill, you know. But anyway, that was the first time I really played with him. And man, I think the quartet took a different shape than it had when Mike was playing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that started a beautiful relationship with John that lasted until his untimely passing.
Yeah.
That last record we did, Within a Song.
Yeah.
Joey Barron.
Yeah. Man. Yeah.
Oh, the way he put that together, because it was all about Jim Hall, you know, and that piece, of course, was without a song, but he wrote what Jim's counterline to what he played to Sonny as the main theme from the bridge, you know. And John was such a creative, amazing player, man. It was
also such a comper, you know, as a accompanist on the guitar, man.
And a serious
playing single lines and all that, like Jesus.
An innovative player that's, you know, Sco followed on a lot of gigs. One of John's first big gigs was with Billy Cobham's band.
Yeah, sure.
Taking John's,
you know,
when he went out, started doing his Gateway Trio or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. But speaking of guitarists, Joe, I wanted to ask you this. You know, I'm such a big fan of Bill Frisell's, and you know, he's such a unique guitarist and sound. And like, how did you guys react, or you especially, when you started playing with him, because he was so different? Like, what was your first chord when he played, or note? Do you remember with Bill? I mean,
well, when I first went and played with Paul with Bill, was like some years after Bill and I knew each other, and I played with him in Boston a little bit. He was playing with Peter Akoshi's band.
Oh yeah.
I went and just sat in with them one time. That was maybe the first time we played together. And Bill, that time, that was maybe 1974.
Already? Oh man, wow.
You know, he already had a distinctive kind of a point to his sound.
Yeah.
You know, that was, and we were both at a stage where we were developing ideas about how and stuff, you know. But then when we first played with Motion, when I went up and played with Paul, with Mark Johnson and Bill, first rehearsal, we played like My Man Is Gone, and we played standard tunes and a few of Paul's originals, you know. Bill, the way he plays a melody, he lives in the melody of the song.
Yeah.
And he plays it with authority and clarity, and also an innocence.
Yeah, innocence. That's a good one. Fragility. This.
He's like discovering it, and even he might have it under his fingertips, but he's playing it with a certain beauty that I don't know. It's hard to describe that, you know. And so to share the melody with him, was always like an exploration of how we could play this melody together without playing, even though we might be playing unison notes.
Yeah, yeah.
But the rhythm and the color started to take shape, another shape besides just his sound or my sound, you know. And when we play any tune, Bill lives in the melody, like I said, you know, and the harmony also,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, sure.
every aspect. But he plays that melody, and he'll use that melody will become a background, kind of like an approach like Thelonious, man.
Yeah.
Bill, very influenced by Thelonious Monk.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
and
when
the
you
way
play Monk, yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And then the way we played, developed as a trio with no bass, the melody is so important to sustain throughout the piece. And I think that's why Paul, like we ended up playing with Paul for 30 years because we were always reshaping and creating some music inside the repertoire.
Yeah.
Without just repeating it. Did
you guys ever talk about music, like how to make it, or did you just usually just jump in? Or
yeah, not really. We never really. Paul never gave us too much direction. Just the tune itself and the music, the feeling, the way he played gave direction. You know, sometimes a lot of the record dates we did, some of the tunes on some of those records was the first time we played those tunes. Right? Paul would bring in some music. So I remember at record dates, Paul standing at the Bill's music stand, and both Bill and I playing and looking at what he, brought in of his originals,
Yeah.
And he'd listen, and he might say something just about the form of it or whatever. But then once he sat down and played along with us, it would give us an idea of more of the momentum of it, Or if we played through something, I might have played it too fast. He said, "Take your time," and then it would take a different shape. You know what I mean? Just little things, But most of the time, we just like played with interpretation of the piece.
Yeah,
there was a lot of trust. There was a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And Paul was such an amazing, creative, beautiful musician, man. He brought a lot of stuff out of Bill and I.
Yeah.
And both of us, I think, playing with Paul and that trio was a springboard to all this music that we've both been exploring through the years, And it's so great. Since Paul's passing, Bill and I have hardly played, He passed in 2011, so it's like 10 years now.
Yeah.
So we're starting to do a couple little things together, and this trio with Tyshawn is going to be a nice next
continuation in a way.
Yeah, continuation and another step in our development together.
Which is beautiful. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing a quintet with two trios, with Marilyn and Carmen and Tyshawn and Bill.
Ooh, man. Oh, yeah.
We did it already, and it's really beautiful the way things take shape within the five people, and the way everybody's approach is,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of new ideas and music to come for sure, man.
That's beautiful for us.
Yeah.
For us listening to you, that's so important, man.
Just speaking on it, it feels really good, man. So thanks for inviting me to share some ideas,
Yeah, it's such an inspiration. I mean, really, like I've transcribed, listened and transcribed so many solos of yours as well,
really.
And seriously, just and I never then kind of learned to play them in a way like in tempo, but just to get the vibe, the spirit of because you then listen to a solo so many times, and I just wrote it down. I was okay, cool, next one, just to get and it's so important. Yeah.
Wow.
So beautiful. Cool. Thank you, Joe. I have still so many questions, but I will not bother you too much anymore. So thanks already.
Well, we could have another chat at some other time.
Yeah, you've done stuff with Elvin and everyone. It's just like so much history there what you did. So
Well,
yeah.
playing with Elvin Jones, man.
Speaking of opposite to Paul in a way, right? Kind of.
Well, I first sat in with Elvin in 1975.
Wow.
In Cleveland, 74, 75, just before I moved to New York. I was in a house band in a club called the Smiling Dog Saloon in Cleveland. The guitar player, Bill D'Arango, who we didn't speak about, but Bill D'Arango was the first major guitar player I ever experienced, who was from Cleveland and played with Bird and Dizzy and Ben Webster, everybody, from that crowd, the Tad Dameron crowd.
Yeah.
But Elvin came to Cleveland with Steve Grossman. Liebman had just left the band with Steve Grossman, Roland Prince on guitar from Antigua, and a bass player, Milton Suggs. And they played a week at Smiling Dog. I was in some groups opposite them, and then got friendly with Elvin and Steve and everybody, and sat in a few different nights.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. And then I had an open invitation to sit in whenever, so then when I moved to New York, they came, they were playing in town. I sat in a number of times. And then in the early 80s, Pat LaBarbera was in the band. Steve had moved to Europe. And I started to sub for Pat on some gigs.
Ah, okay. That's how the connection happened.
82, something around there. And then he called me to join the Jazz Machine in 87, 86. My dad had just passed, and Thad also had just passed. So I did a European 9-week tour.
9-week tour, man.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
That was incredible, man. It was like the first 2 weeks were at Ronnie Scott's. So
Wow.
For the first 2 weeks, we played every night in one room, and that was great. Yeah. And then went on the road for another, some weeks. And that was the beginning of a beautiful study and relationship with Elvin.
Yeah.
And then he played on my recording trio Tapestry 10 years later.
Fascination. Yeah.
1998.
Yeah.
With Dave Holland,
Yeah, I love that.
Wow, that was one of those moments where I wrote all the music to play with him and Dave,
Yeah, Eternal Joy, man, there, and that Sanctuary Park and all those songs, man. Jesus, that's so cool.
Well, I rehearsed all that duet with Dave.
Ah, wow, okay.
Like similar what I like to rehearse instead of full groups within the group and then put together. So it's fresh for everybody, but yet I have a connection with folks.
That's important.
Yeah. So for that date, I rehearsed with Dave and we put all these things together. And then with Elvin, we just hit.
Sure.
We ran down the themes and some of the ending moments, and then we just made take,
Yeah.
That record also was in kind of real time. I don't have any alternate takes.
Oh, wow.
Session.
Brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Elvin was like, he came in to play.
That's nicely put.
Yeah. But that's what he did.
Yeah,
he
sure.
Didn't know what else to do, man.
Sure.
He didn't question anything, man. He just took the music and made shapes with it. And like you mentioned, Eternal Joy, the way that took shape, those little vamp moments and riffs and stuff, he was just playing along with you in a natural, organic flow.
Yeah.
The one take on Impressionistic also, where he plays mallets and the mallet solo, and I switch horns. I'm playing straight alto and alto clarinet, different things.
Mm-hmm.
That took a shape never to be repeated.
Then, yeah.
So that was it. It was just the way that went down, man. And it was, when I listen to that now, every now and then, it's like a shining moment for me,
Yeah, it's beautiful that you can do that. That's so amazing. Yeah. That you can a record and you're like, fuck, well, you know, sorry for the expression, but that's like, you know, me playing with Alvin Jones amazingly
and yeah,
my
and
tunes.
creating, yeah, and creating some music, having the embrace, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
of those cats for me was like, it's always been a springboard and it still is today, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool. Joe, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the stories, and I, you know, hope to see you on the road soon.
I look forward to hearing you, man, and maybe playing sometime together.
Oh, that would be a dream. Like that's like you and Alvin. That would be like that, but you never know. Never know. Never know. Cool, Joe. Thank you so much. Stay strong, and when you're in Europe, I'll definitely catch you. So when you're playing, so.
Dr. Jazz.